Mr. Keune, welcome to this episode of The Aligned Founder. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, great. Just had a good session.
Bit of breath work?
Yeah, it was great.
What were today's insights?
I'd say the biggest insight for me was that I'm actually allowed to feel joy or joy, fun, see more easy and nice stuff, and even like joy without any reasons, like joy as a natural state of being, rather than something that has to be earned. So that was a big insight that that's available and actually allowed to feel that. That was cool. And then also I got this big insight too, where I could see like breath work and also my Zen practice are kind of coming together in a really nice way.
Yeah.
Kind of supporting each other. So yeah, that just felt great to see, okay, what I'm choosing naturally in terms of like tools and practice actually goes together quite well.
Nice.
So yeah, it was good.
Cool. It's an interesting topic, this idea of like being allowed to feel joyful without any reason.
Yeah.
And without having achieved some mystical outcome first, which is maybe something we can get into later.
Definitely.
About this relationship between conditional love or conditional acceptance, or I'll be happy when.
Yeah, sounds great, yeah.
Which is, I think maybe that could be the title of this episode. I'll be happy when.
That makes sense, yeah.
It will make more sense if in a little while if you're listening. So for someone, let's just assume someone has no idea who you are, never heard of who's this guy Bjoern. Okay, what does he do or what's he about? Maybe give us the 2-minute elevator pitch of your past and present life.
Yeah, happy to do so. The first of all, I'd say I have no idea who I am and what I'm doing.
Perfect.
Just like, finding ways through whatever that is that we call life. And on that way, I have...
Doesn't look good in the CV though, does it?
Yeah, luckily I don't care about my CV that much anymore. But I did care a lot about it. Like, for probably most of my lifetime, my CV was my focus. Sure. So along that journey, I have built a few companies. Started very early, age of 16 was my first one. Tried to go to university, didn't work out. Came to Berlin, co-founded a company in the healthcare space, basically trying to bring doctor's appointments online. Worked on that for 6 years as co-founder, CEO. Quite difficult market, didn't really work out in the end. Found a way for like a face saving exit, but wasn't great. Second company was within marketing, so we're using basically influencers and creating products based on social media trends, and then using influencers on Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram to then scale these brands.
At a time when probably people weren't doing it that much as well.
Yeah, it was early days of it, end of 2015, so it was already there, but it wasn't big.
Yeah, now it's like every other person is paid partnership kind of thing.
Totally. I mean, influencer marketing has become one of the main marketing channels. If you are to market a D2C brand or whatever else, it's there.
Considering no one watches TV anymore, really.
Exactly. Exactly. And it was the day basically the time where that shift started to happen from TV to social media. So right place, right time. It's all about timing in the end. So that company I co-founded, also led as CEO most of the time. That was quite successful, at least financially. Went from 0 to 100 million within 5 years, 4 years even. And we sold it twice, one to private equity, afterwards to a strategic player. And that was, let's say, always has been my entrepreneurial journey up to that point. So it's a company 2020. I stayed with it for another 2 years with a new owner, and then left afterwards. And by now, professionally, I am investing into early stage companies. Ideally, very early stage, kind of, we have a rough idea, we have a pitch deck, but there's no one else invested yet. That's kind of my sweet spot.
Get them when they're vulnerable kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, also like not only giving money and let's say business advice. I mean, I've been doing that for like 12 years now, so I can really have some impact and can help to avoid, let's say, the most common mistakes.
Yeah.
I am also requiring every founder I'm working with to kind of sign up for a coaching breathwork program to be, really aligned and aware of what they're doing and to be able to still, or to have the resilience for when there's a storm, So, that's my investment approach at the moment. Other than that, I have pretty much into Zen, so I have a deep Zen practice.
Which is meditation.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry. Should I mention that? Yeah, it's meditation basically. I mean, Zen is way more than that, but it's a core. It's meditation. That's true. And also deeply into breathwork.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm doing most of the time.
It's pretty good for someone who doesn't know who they are.
And then had once again an idea, okay, I've been this person, now I'm that person that does all these things but don't do the other things anymore.
Yeah.
And definitely I have been able to kind of fill my life with a different type of content that is then more healthy and more enjoyable, but it's still kind of like an image I have about myself, and then when I'm attached to that image, it creates all sorts of stresses. So I tend to be no one, and then want to be no one, and then sometimes I still get into the trap of being trapped in one image or something like that. But I came to the conclusion that I can't really define who I am because it's basically changing moment to moment. It's like life is a constant progress. It's unfolding as we speak in that very moment.
Yeah.
So it's insane to say I'm that fixed person.
Yeah.
I am that. It's against what's actually happening. It's like it's a path to suffering immediately.
Yeah.
So I try to remind myself, hey, I'm no one. I can choose to be this, that, and the other. But at the core, I'm none of that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I forget about that.
Well, I think there are benefits to having labels. Like one is being able to identify who we are to others and how they can identify us. And it's like a shortcut in the brain that we don't have to recognize, oh, you're on my team, you're not on my team.
Yeah.
However, it sounds like you've, from personal experience, learned the benefit of, or more, I would say, learned the downside of becoming attached to labels and the suffering that can be caused by that.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something we can
for sure.
unpack a little bit in this interview.
Brilliant.
So let's go back a few years. When you were growing up, kind of early life / teenage years, what were some early signs or early things that kind of, if you look back on now, planted the seeds for like wanting to be an entrepreneur or wanting to go down that path?
Freedom. Freedom, like a deep, deep longing for freedom.
Freedom from what?
Everything.
Right.
The earliest memory that I have that I felt really trapped in kindergarten already, like I fucking hated it.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I enjoyed about this experience.
Yeah.
And that basically went on kindergarten, school, then high school, university. University was at a point where I could take my decisions for myself. So that's the reason why I left after, trying it for 1.5 years.
Yeah.
Everything that is kind of, like today I can look back and say, in these environments, I had the idea that I have to be someone else than who I truly am.
Yeah.
Back then, it had all sorts of stories around why I'm trapped and not free.
Mm-hmm.
But the search has always been the same. It has been for freedom. Freedom from, today I would say freedom from self. And back then it was, okay, I want to be free of someone that tells me what to do. I want to be free of certain constraints, financial constraints, for example.
They were more surface-facing, like representations of what the freedom wasn't. Kind of thing.
Exactly. And I'd say the main thing was that idea that I had in my mind that I have to be someone in order to be loved and accepted.
Where'd you get that one from?
First of all, I'd say it's like a very common theme in society.
Sure.
And at the same time, I got that from my mom. I can see how, like, you know, she's still living that, basically. Lots of fear around people not liking her, and I basically had the same fear. I still have it. And always, like, trying to analyze, okay, I'm meeting this, that, and the other person. Who are they? How can I adjust in a way so that they're going to like me, accept me, ultimately love me? It's even way more than just being liked. It's even like a longing for love and acceptance, approval, these type of things. So yeah, just learn that this is a way to live and ultimately a way to survive in that world. And to a certain extent, that works. It's highly stressful. It drains the energy. In the long run, it makes people sick. And it's a way of surviving. Then the question is, do I just want to survive, or is there more to life than just like surviving basically one day after the other? Yeah. And I believe I've been highly sensitive to the world in general. And that caused lots of, like, this idea of like having to be someone caused lots of stress in my system, ultimately.
The example I like to use is like method acting. Like, for instance, Heath Ledger played the Joker and spent, 6 to 8 months preparing and being in that role. And ultimately, some would say driving himself insane. And whether he committed suicide or took an overdose accidentally, basically the role killed him, inverted commas. And it's this idea of like playing someone that we're not, and that we become and we believe that we are. And then the amount of energy that drains from us trying to maintain that image to the world. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way of summing it up. And how would you have found that in terms of the different personas that you had to play, even in your early life? Yeah. What were the roles?
The roles of the good son, the successful guy at school. Bringing home good grades and all these type of things.
How did that work then when you left university? Because I'm sure that went against some of those.
Before we got to that, just one thought regarding that topic of freedom. Ultimately, I had the belief that I can get to a point, first of all, by fulfilling all these roles and everything, I can get to a point where I will be free because there's no one anymore that I have to show up to in a certain way. And I thought I can achieve that. And very early in life, I had that idea, probably age 12, 13. I had suddenly this idea, okay, if I have a lot of money, then I'm free, because then I'm at the very top of the food chain, basically. There's no one that can tell me what to do, what not to do. I fulfilled all these expectations that are there, and then there's no one left.
Completed the video game.
Exactly. And then I can just be who I am. Then when I got there, then I can actually be myself, basically.
Yeah. And until then, I can't.
Exactly. Yeah. And until then, I have to show up in a certain way, do certain things, become or be someone, and so on and so on. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Well, we were talking about the maintenance of personas and which personas you had to keep up, and then I said about leaving university, about how did that impact your persona of the good boy who gets the good grades for someone who then, inverted commas, dropped out of college.
Yeah, actually this wasn't a big thing, because I had I went to specifically this university, which is kind of a business school that trains people to become consultants or investment bankers. Yeah. And that was great for me because I thought these two jobs are going to make a lot of money. And then at university, I realized, okay, these are just traps, because I can get into that race, but then for the first, let's say, 25 years of an average corporate career, I'm going to be making good money, but it's never going to be enough. Yeah. That goal that I had in mind, it's very hard to achieve that through a regular job. Yeah. So I thought, okay, I need to start companies. I had some experiences with that before. So I already had like an idea, like, okay, that's something I'm capable of doing it, you know?
Yeah.
Also my first companies, I did not create them because I enjoyed the creation. I created them to make money,
Yeah.
you know? So
That makes sense given like that deep rooted seed that was planted very early. Like, I'm not free, I need to escape. And the best possible solution I can find to that is to have that. So let me structure all of my life and thinking and behavior around achieving that outcome.
Exactly. So then when I left university, I did it because I had learned that I need to go on a different path to actually achieve my goal.
Yeah.
So university didn't serve it anymore. In the moment something, and unfortunately also someone did not serve my goal, I would drop them immediately.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the same thing. So I could see, yes, it can be like, it would have been nice to have that degree, kind of like a backup. But for me, it was also like, you know, all or nothing. Like, either I get there.
Get rich or die trying.
Yeah. No, I mean, with my friend Genna and also my co-founder, like, we were always saying that. Like, okay, get rich or die trying, doesn't matter. So that's the only thing. There's no way. There's also no plan B.
Yeah.
You know, plan B would have been to just disappear, go to Thailand, live on an island, run a bar, and like.
And then you can be yourself because no one knows you.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't a big thing actually. I had some anxiety around it, like, and yeah, maybe it would be better, blah blah. But it didn't.
I know
really
a few
bother
people
me.
who did the part B. So. Huh? I know a few people who did the part B. So.
Yeah.
Nice. So you left university and started your first company with the intention of this could be the thing that gets me ultimately that freedom.
Yeah.
How was that process? First startup, founder, CEO.
I mean, first of all, it was tons of hard work, day and night. Back then, my body still had the capacity. Actually, before I started the company, I was also, like, let's say, well in shape and was fit and healthy. So, like, I had capacity to work until
To push, yeah.
2 a.m., then, you know, go get drunk and then be back in the office at 9 a.m. again or 10. So yeah, lots of hard work, but also having a good time with my co-founder in Berlin, getting to know the city, arriving here
From
Frankfurt,
Yeah.
where I've been born and raised. And yeah, though I mean, it was hard work. It was like lots of things I would do for the first time, first shareholder meeting, you know, being extremely nervous.
how old were you then?
22, I think.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, 22. Running a company with already like, I don't know, 15 or 20 people and running out of money basically, every other month, more or less.
Yeah.
Still remember one situation that was quite big for me where like December 2012, I believe, 2012. Like we had, so basically there was no money left, and the notary appointment for the next financing was scheduled beginning January. So beginning December, like we spoke with the team and said, hey, we have that notary appointment. If that doesn't happen, then you're not going to receive any money for December or January, or companies. Then it's that. If you start looking for a new job now, then we can totally understand that. And at the same time, we need to kind of push through December to make sure that the whole deal doesn't fall apart.
Yeah.
Because every investor, like 2 days before the notary appointment, will ask for the, like, say, okay, what are the current numbers looking like?
Yeah.
And everyone showed up the next day. You know, that's a part that I always enjoyed about creating companies and startups. It's, and we get to the more painful side of things, but there were also stuff where I felt like, hey, there's a certain energy, and there's like I can do something that is special in a certain way, and that I also, now looking at it, I can see how, for example, a moment like the one I just described, it's a moment of connection with people that I have been seeking all the time, because like speaking the truth was you're going to run out of money, and then sharing that openly, and like also in a certain way like admitting failure, because
Sure.
CEO, it's like my job to bring in the money, saying, look, I
You
didn't
weren't the
find a better
perfect
way.
CEO anymore.
exactly. Like I didn't say it that way, but kind of that is what happened in a certain way. And then seeing, I'm still accepted, and then people showing up the next day, it's quite significant actually. So there were a few things that I really enjoyed about doing that.
Yeah. Quite unique compared to like a typical corporate situation, I'd say, where people are like, just, okay, well, if you don't have my safe paycheck next month, then see you later.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You know, so there's different energy, I think, and
Yeah.
maybe that's what someone signs up for when they're working in a startup.
Yeah.
And then maybe that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah.
Because the wind, like when the winds come, they're bigger, obviously.
Totally. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So experiences like this, also learned like, how can I say that? The basic tools and experiences I need to have as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Like first time firing someone.
Yeah.
Super tough. That was the part I hated the most about my job, actually, letting people go. Mm-hmm. So I still remember the first time I had to do that. Obviously, I'd chosen to do it, so didn't really have to do it. Yeah, just...
What persona has been challenged by that firing?
So the people pleaser, the one that like, always wants to be accepted and liked, and the one that had difficulties sitting in people's emotions.
Yep. It's a tough place to be in, because if there's someone who's there who needs to be fired, then there's current employees and maybe shareholders and stuff that are not happy until they're gone. But then you have to actually fire them, and then they're not going to be happy. So it's kind of a lose-lose for the people pleaser, because it's impossible to keep all parties happy in that situation,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. So also basically, as I said, like all the basic things that I need to, like, also like big thing is also like keeping an eye on everything while knowing where do I need to zoom in and focus to actually then make sure that the things that are really mission critical are delivered in the right way. Mm-hmm. Also something I learned along that way. And then, also finding that balance between like, let's say, being truthful about what is and what the company is doing at the moment, and at the same time trying to sell it in terms of like bringing in money. Yeah, that's always like kind of finding a little balance, because investors will always challenge me on okay, how will that play out? How will that play out? How will like how confident are you about this number and so on? And deep inside, for sure, like I had doubts about everything. And some of these doubts were like also manifesting in the business, but then at the same time, I knew if I would like open all of these doubts, then people wouldn't invest. So like navigating this play.
Another mask.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's, by the way, something I want to do, or hopefully I'm doing very different with my current ventures, where I encourage people to just like present all the shit, like don't hide anything. Yeah. Because I can handle it, and I don't expect them to like play a persona. I want to look at it together and say like, okay, what's the best way go forward? Yeah. Instead of like expecting them to deliver a show. But I felt like when I was speaking with investors, I felt like it was expected of me to deliver a certain show. That's also how I learned that business, by the way. Always be pretending, I had these people around me were saying like after shareholder meeting saying, you need to present in this and that way, so that comes across more like this, and then this fact I would hide and this and that. Yeah. And that made me even feel like, even more like I have to play or pretend to be someone, what I mean?
And it sounds like, because you were quite young at the time, relatively early 20s, mid 20s. So how are you figuring all this stuff out? Like who was kind of pointing you in the right direction?
I'd say there were three things that they kept me going and helped me to also like figure things out. One is I do have a pretty strong instinct. Some people call it instinct, other people call it intuition. But business-wise, I do look at things and then I have a knowing. And many, many times that knowing is just right. Even if I'm new to an industry or whatsoever, there's something I can connect to, and then it gives me guidance. Mm-hmm. Second thing is I always had like a mentor. So there was a guy, his name is Pascal. I met him after university. Basically, he was the one that generated the idea for the first business. Mm-hmm. He's had 10 years more experience and was running a gaming company at that point. So he was pretty close to me and also to the rest of the team and providing lots of guidance and helped a lot to kind of like be reflecting things, figuring out the strategy, and also avoiding some mistakes. So that was number 2, and then number 3 was my partner back then. Like we were spending, like I was working Monday to Friday 24/7, but the weekends we would spend together, and that was kind of a place where I was then able, at least for 48 hours, to disconnect from all the stresses and to, just...
This is your romantic partner?
Yes, sorry.
Not your business partner?
Yeah, no, my romantic partner. Yeah, it's just been a place where things are good and okay. And I would say these 3 things kind of helped me to navigate through the storms.
Nice.
Of, like, a company not really working out.
Yeah. And so, as you said, like you were able to save face in some way with the ending of that company. And what was the name of it?
It's a German name, arzttermine.de.
Arzttermine.
So doctor's appointments.de.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Genius.
You
the branding department should get a raise.
You choose a name like that, like back then, especially for search engine optimization reasons, because like that would rank high, and if a brand name ranks high, that saves you quite some money on like getting your brand name ranking for a keyword like that.
Yeah, totally. If you could go back today as your mentor of the younger version of you, mentoring your younger version, what would be the 3 pieces of advice you'd give to him? That first business.
So one would be to find balance. It's good to work very hard on something, be very focused, and still, like as a human being, like if life consists of many areas, and if I exclude most of the different areas just to focus on one for too long, it's not going to work out. So find balance.
Would that younger version have listened to you saying that though?
Yeah, I think it would have, depending on
the credibility of the source.
Yeah, and also from which place it would have come.
Yeah.
That's would have and like as you're saying it, like my next advice would have been to try something that just opens the mind, you know. That could have been anything, but try to find, in order to get that balance, try to find something that interrupts the thought pattern.
Yeah.
And then see what happens without saying anything else. And then third advice, balance, practice, and it's hard to say because like the main thing would be around the practice, but
practice and more practice.
Yeah, practice and just then interrupt everything that you're doing and see if there's something else, and if not, then this is fine, you know. But do something that is very different and that just gets you, the old version of me, out of this current pattern, so to say.
You mentioned that there was a number of skills you learned for the first time. So firing people, shareholder meetings, you know, that kind of thing. What would be the one skill that you know now that if you could go back and like insert that skill into the younger version of you in order to accelerate his progress, what would it be in terms of business?
In terms of business?
Yes. Less exciting, maybe.
Yeah.
What's the one needle mover? which I think might become part 3.
Yeah, with regard to business, I'd say that's a good question, actually, because honestly, with regard to business, I always felt extremely confident. So I always felt like I had no idea what I was doing, and I felt like I know exactly what I'm doing. So I had, like, for sure, like I was nervous maybe before a meeting or anything, and for shareholder meetings, and it stressed me out and everything. But I also always felt like I had all the stuff already.
So just be confident, basically.
I mean, I wouldn't like insert more confidence because I already created all sorts of problems, and it wasn't like a real confidence. But since I can't go into personal topics, I'm staying in business. I maybe add. I know, honestly, I had some fucking skills. I mean, I added more experiences. Okay, like I had more experience, and then some trial and error. But let's say. Yeah, within the business part of things.
Okay, let me try to reframe this, because I'm trying to extract some juice for someone who's maybe in an early stage founder setup, and they want to know what's something they can, like a skill they can learn that's been very valuable for you.
Okay.
So you already had everything. You didn't need
that makes
anything.
sense. Okay, now I get it. I'd say, okay, now I get the question. I'd say to really boost success, always like check on your timing and try to get your timing right. Timing is the number one thing. Be at the right place at the right time beats everything. You can have the best idea with the best team. If it's on the wrong time, it's not going to work. And you can have an average team, which is an average idea or a product, just at the right time. You're going to have some sort of success. So timing is the number one thing. And then I would say, I would have told the old version of me, like, honestly look at the timing of what you're doing. And with that, I would have come to the conclusion that we were just way too early, give up and put that energy somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, no business in that world is worth it to completely drain my life force energy, basically. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
So change it and look for timing, unless you find joy in building something. So if you find joy in what you do every day and you don't care if you're 1 employee or 10, all good. But if you don't really care about, if you care more, like in my case, care more about the money and the fact that there is a business that is up and running, then make sure you got your timing right.
How does someone improve their timing outside of being like an astrologer or something?
I would say...
Because I'm sure a part of you thought that idea in some way was the right time at the time.
You know the truth?
Sure.
No.
So be real with yourself, basically.
Yeah. No, I didn't. And you know what's funny? The first business, I knew that this company is never going to make me rich, but I knew there's a reason to do it. And in the end, if I look at how things then played out, the reason was there. I just never saw it.
Yeah.
But I always knew that this company is not going to make me rich. And I knew it's going to be okay-ish. Not going to be like full fail, like complete explosion, everyone losing their job one day to another, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I also knew it's not going to be this one big thing.
Yeah, lottery win kind of thing.
Yeah. And it was good that I stayed with it for 6 years, because otherwise things might have been very different. Yeah. But within that, timing could have been improved, because timing is not only for the overall business, it's
right
also
product, right time. Yeah,
exactly. That's one thing. But then in every kind of segment of the company, you can look for timing. Like, like what marketing channel do I use? How do I position and then I can look at, for example, I can see there's a certain marketing channel that's just evolving that requires my company to be presented in a certain way, and I can do that. Or I can say, I have a fixed idea about it is this channel and this way of presenting myself, and I go into it. If it works, great. If not, then I keep pushing, never works. Or I can look at all the available channels. I can see, okay, maybe there's something that is like evolving, but for that I might have to change my positioning or the way I present myself, and then I optimize for timing. Or let's say, so it really works with marketing channels. It can also work with, let's say, even with employees in a certain way. If I'm noticing, okay, there's like something that there's a certain type of, let's say, people emerging that wants to work in a certain way, I can be the first company to provide that, and then I will attract all the top talent. Yeah. While the others are all stuck to the old models of working together. Yeah. It works in all kind of areas of the business. So this is like an optimization of timing within a company. Yeah. And then I can also optimize it for the overall thing.
Why do you think then because technically then in theory, a CEO or a founder or whatever could stand back, look at all, we'll just take the marketing example, look at all available channels and say, oh, well, and have a bit of an analysis of all and then choose the logically best one. So why is it that people, do you think, do get stuck in like more of a dogmatic view of, oh, this is the way, or that, because maybe they stick to what they know, or like what are the main things behind someone not getting the timing right?
Yeah, I'm always surprised by that whenever I see it in companies. People do have quite strong opinions about something. And I think the thing is, in order to move forward, I need to form an opinion, right? Because otherwise I need to give directions to my people, also to myself, make decisions. So I need to have an opinion. And I don't know, honestly, I don't know exactly what it is that makes someone to be that stuck with a certain opinion. Probably if an opinion about something is then attached to some kind of self-worth whatsoever, then that way it becomes difficult.
Fear of being wrong, maybe.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that makes sense. The skill is to, I believe it's really one of the most valuable skills one can have, to look at all options available, form an opinion, and then stay open to new opinions constantly, and be able to let go of a formed opinion immediately if there's something new emergent, and not use wishful thinking. Many people, and I wouldn't exclude myself from it, right? But sometimes, I even still today, I catch myself like having it would be great if we could do this business in that way through that channel. That would be really great. And then I start going in that direction rather than looking at all the options that are on the table and maybe having to give up on that idea.
Get the blinkers on.
Exactly. But that, I would say, for me, it's been a strong skill of mine to be able to let go of ideas how things have to be, and then be open to new stuff that would arise and then jump on that. Yeah.
It's quite an interesting process because similar to what you're saying about this idea of a personal identity, where, we have this label of who we are. And then there's this thing of like, I'm constantly changing and evolving, but then also in some way naming that. So I think the same can it's, as you said, being able to form an opinion about something, say, this is what I believe, but then also being open to changing that, but not too fluid. So you're not just, following the hot topic of every week, where your opinion changes every other day. So there's no backbone to it. Yeah. So I think there is a dance there. And I think there's an art probably to that of dancing between being too rigid and too fluid.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that that saying that I use sometimes business is an art, not science, and this is exactly that. Then you need the science for the execution of a strategy, but it's an art to figure out the right strategy. That's why ultimately strategy consulting doesn't work, but it's a different story.
We won't open that box. And the thing about art is that it's open to interpretation, and you could be criticized for your art.
Yeah, totally.
Particularly by people who approach art like a science. Anyway.
That's funny. Like for me, that has always been, in a certain way, easy because I did not, like I've done businesses that serve the purpose of making money. Yeah. And the way I felt about it, it has had very little to do with myself. So I never saw it as I'm bringing out the creation of myself.
Yeah.
It's just this thing that is supposed to print money and at some point it's going to do.
Yeah.
So when someone like criticized strategy or whatsoever, I was pretty open to a change, if it made sense.
Yes.
Let's say, for me, business-wise.
So, that was the learnings from the first business. And we don't know if you would go back, what you would tell them. Balance, practice.
Timing.
Yeah. Bumper sticker. And so then began the second venture, which was a little bit more profitable in the end. Tell me a bit about Invincible Brands.
Yeah. So the reason why I said it all played out the way I wanted it in the end, even with my first venture. So basically, by the time that let's say the first venture was coming to an end, clearly there was strategic investor that wanted to buy all the shares and integrate it, and that I was becoming very obvious that's not my thing anymore.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my back then mentor, friend, co-founder, Pascal, he had invested in another company, and they were basically were selling tea through social media. Mm-hmm. And he connected me with the founder of that company, and we all got together, also with my other friend and co-founder, Genna. We all got together and said, okay, what works for teas could also work for other verticals. Mm-hmm. And we basically created a long list of potential industries to go into: cosmetics, food supplements, and so on. And then, hey, let's try that. But let's say if I had, and in fact I had an offer for a very, very attractive job already 2 years before that in the US, super high salary, very attractive, living in Boston, quite nice actually. And the company was not going well back then. So I was very attracted to it, and deep inside I felt I'm giving up on something without even knowing, and I followed that intuition to not go there.
Yeah.
Also, to be honest, my shareholder then threw a little bit of money on the problem. But anyways, that was something. If I had taken that job, I would have disappeared from Berlin, wouldn't have been connected to Pascal anymore.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have called me on that day and said, hey, you've invested in this company, you want to meet the founder, maybe you can do something.
Yeah.
Because that one call was basically, it changed my life.
Yeah.
In a way where then we came together, we said, okay, we testing now cosmetics and food supplements and basically applying the same principle. Mm-hmm. So it was also good for me because I didn't have to do the creative invention of the business model or anything. I would take it and execute it aggressively, which I'm pretty good in executing stuff or telling people how to execute at least. Yeah. So pretty simple, looking social media, using influencers, and what started as a little, okay, let's test if that works, became a pretty big company very fast. And I watched it for 6 months, kind of from the sideline in a certain way. And then after 6 months, I said, okay, this shit's going to work. I'm going to join. And I was shareholder already, but I will come in fully and be the CEO of it and lead it. And and that's the funny thing is when I made the decision to come in, I basically back in that day or I already knew it's actually too much for me. Mm-hmm. Because I had several options on the table. I was sending an email to Pascal. I was saying, look, I believe it's a great opportunity. I think I'm going to do that. And at the same time, if that business gets into difficulties, I already know I'm not going to have the power to push through. Then I'm out. I was actually burned out already after my first experience. So I somewhere find the energy and the greed to that kept me going. But it's
better be a winner, basically.
Yeah, and no difficulties.
Yeah.
I didn't see the difficulties that I can also have while things are going well. So
yeah,
just to put, stuff that we're going to speak about in the next couple of minutes a bit in perspective, like the first journey was already pretty tough. And I still went in the second one. But there I could see like, that's going to work out. The signs were just too obvious,
The intuition was lighting up.
Yeah.
So after 6 months on the sidelines as a shareholder, you joined, got in, rolled up your sleeves and got in there. And so what was your main, like as the CEO there, what was your main kind of wheelhouse? What were the ways that you drove that company forward in such a short space of time to that level of sales?
Good question. So first of all, I'd say I determined very very early what are the most crucial things we need to get right. And then, for example, like going fast into all sorts of different countries within Europe, like using the same mechanism but applying it to different countries to grow fast was something I felt like that's important. So
and easy if you're doing it online.
Exactly. And then making sure that on these crucial topics we would have like best available resource on it. So basically my co-founder Genner took over the internationalization for the first couple of months, which led to quite some successes. And then I basically, always together with the team, but like I think I brought in a way of like breaking things to achieve growth, to then put them together again. So for example, the team would come to me and say, hey, look, we are running out of stock, but sales are quite high. And then I'd say, whatever, fuck it, like keep selling. We figure it out one way or the other. So it would happen that we were run out of stock for like 2 months and wouldn't ship any product, but would get in all the sales basically. And then the team would come and say, I need to stop marketing. No, fuck this, like no one is going to stop anything. Like we keep pushing. And yes, it's painful, but like this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like we need to grow before someone else does. And then basically Genna and Christian, who was also a managing director at the company, I told them to pick up the phone and call suppliers. I didn't even need to tell them; it was kind of obvious. Call suppliers and try to find like product, try to find packaging, and get it somehow, But I would take the decision to like push the sales and not stop before knowing if we would find product or not. That's just one example. I also allowed people to operate with quite some freedom. I mean, I had clear boundaries, but let's say as long as it was aligned with what I wanted, they had
making a shit ton of money.
Exactly, quite some freedom to operate, and I was also regularly throwing money at problems, basically, not really messing around, trying to negotiate always the best deal whatsoever. If it was a way to just with some money to just achieve growth, I would just put on it and then
see what happens.
People go with it. So we like a culture of breaking stuff to achieve growth, getting the priorities always very clear. Also working long hours is clearly part of the culture.
You mentioned to me before about this idea of being comfortable with fires burning. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that's my favorite topic actually. It's a philosophy that I still have. Even if I look at my portfolio of investments I have today, there are a few things that require my immediate attention. Otherwise, it's going to fall apart completely. And then a few things that could need some attention, but the fire is not threatening life at that moment. So let it burn. And that's what I did there. I could, in the company, with the fast growth that we had, within the, say, second year, we went from 5 million to 30 million of sales. And the team grew from I don't know exactly, but let's say 30 to 80 people, something like that. There are tons of fires, tons of projects that could go wrong and will go wrong and are not optimized to the last little detail. And And unless something became like a real threat for the business or a threat for my goal of like growing and cashing out, I'd say fine, you can burn as long as you want, and like turn to you later, or maybe someone else will kind of take care of you. And for that, you need a team who's like able to like also handle the stresses and also handle the fires.
Yeah.
But
the Berlin Fire Department on on speed dial.
Yeah, but it also comes with like focus. I would focus at stuff that is most important, give number one priority, and really go into it.
Yeah.
And let the other stuff burn, because if I would dilute myself across all the little fires, then I might have the most stable, perfectly operating, nice
with a ribbon on top, kind of
really nice, but someone else is going to take the market. It's insane. Like, I mean, business is insanely competitive. If there's something new coming up and people suddenly start noticing, it's growing, it's working, like we can actually make some money, then after a few days there's competition.
Yeah.
And then either you grow faster than the others and grab the market and become bigger, can then defend yourself and stuff, or it won't work. And that's at the same time, like we started, there were many other brands that probably had, I'd say, at least as good products as we had. Some of them maybe even better, I don't know. And very good, well put together brands and very nice operations. Yeah. None of them in that time became as big as we were, simply because we were executing faster, more aggressively, and we're accepting fires burning. Yeah. We had regular breakdowns of like the fulfillment center, for example, because they nowhere near to be prepared on for the amount of orders we would send them. But this is not a reason to stop selling. Sure. There's a reason to go to the center and ask them, okay, like, what do you need? Okay, you need cash to hire more people. There you go. Yeah. But it's absolutely no reason to stop the sales. Yeah. And I think it's a core skill, like knowing what is like, what's a threat, what do we really need to get right, and then be on top of that and ignore all the rest. Like fully ignore. Don't even like waste a minute thinking about it. Yeah. Just ignore it. And if it's important, it's going to come back. Yeah. Like I went through like 12 years building companies without like a notebook or anything. I've never written anything down. I said, if it's important, I'm going to remember. If it's not important, then I'll forget. And if the team brings it back like 3-4 times, I know it's important. If they only come once and never come again, then I will know, okay, it wasn't important. They found a way to solve it. Not my problem. I only started writing things down when I dived into personal development. Yeah, sure. Stuff was too deep. But for business, I'm still not today. I'm not taking a single note about business. I fucking hate it. Just if it's important, I can remember it. Wow.
That's a pretty nice way of thinking about it, because I'm sure there's some people in that position that feel overwhelmed by the amount of balls in the air and plates in the air that they're spinning. Yeah. And it's just the great advice, just blissful ignorance, just ignore it. Yeah. And then if it comes in your face a few times, then look at it.
Yeah. And that requires you to know, like, okay, what are the few things that need to be okay, Yeah. Otherwise the system doesn't work.
Yeah. Do you have liquidity? Do you have are the ads running? That kind of thing. Exactly. I really, so what's interesting is, because you mentioned playing a few different masks or personas. I'm sure there was a few present, the perfect CEO, whatever in that as well as the people pleaser and all. However, my sense is that the strength of that goal allowed you to probably override, because in the pursuit of like that goal at the top of the pyramid is the number one thing of like freedom and achieving that, success. That would then override all the other desires to be liked by people, desires to do it right, desires to look good, like what if the supplier doesn't like me? Like a lot of people would get hung up on that they would place their fear of, upsetting somebody or not being liked by someone above their desire for success. And therefore they would not put in more extra orders because the sales team might be angry or the fulfillment center might be angry. And they would actually then stunt their own growth and progress because they've put more importance on how other people feel or think about them than their actual objective. So it sounds like that's just for me, it's very clear of like the one point of focus of that goal and how that allowed you to tune out all the noise to get there.
Yeah. And I would still say at the same time, I was trying to make it nice for everyone. And what techniques that served me extremely well was to be very transparent about why we would do things. and to explain people why I would let the sales running. And there were always reasons. I mean, most of them were, let's say, 90% true, and sometimes people couldn't really like comprehend it fully. So I could, for example, say, hey, we are low in cash, which was true. Like, young company growing fast always have liquidity problems.
Yeah.
So we are low in cash. If we let the sales run, we're going to build up cash that will then be very beneficial for us in the future.
Yeah.
And we want to grow. And then people got that.
Yeah.
So I've been always like, I would have loved to just say, look, I understand your concerns about the sales. I want to get rich, so let's just do it. So I didn't go to that level, but I went to that level, the company level. And the company level.
Still a logical argument.
And on the company level, I made
money
it
equals
transparent.
Good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I was very transparent for everyone to see, okay, it's painful, but I understand why we are doing that.
Yeah.
To still be around in a week from now.
Yeah.
And that I did until the very end, I'd say.
Because you're so confident in that, it probably put them at ease.
Yeah. And that worked. So as a communication strategy, it's quite powerful, I have to say.
So what would you say were like the 2 or 3 kind of high or big moments in that venture, in that company? So I'm sure you went through a few different iterations, the growth, different products, different successes. What would you say were the kind of highlights for you?
Probably the day I was sitting in with my co-founder at his apartment. We're getting drunk slowly. And someone bought a product. We're like, what the fuck? Someone is buying that.
They bought a product?
Online, like the first sale, basically.
Okay.
That was like, I was like, because honestly, I didn't really believe in the products. And I was like, food supplements, like, what the fuck? And then the cosmetics, like, I was like, I don't know if someone really wants to buy that. Like, we put it out. And someone bought it, and I was like, what the fuck? Someone just bought a product.
The dollar signs in the eyes kind of thing.
Yeah. So that was a big moment. And then, what else? Yeah, I think there were... So another one was... The first time we sold the company, when basically the first $1 million hit my bank account personally, that was a big thing for me, which at the same time came as a huge disappointment. But
why is that?
Basically, we've been working on that deal for like 9 months or so, super stressful, pushing super hard. Then like the final days where we did the signing, then at the notary in Frankfurt. 2 days, no sleep, negotiation, this, that, and the other. And I was supposed to like meet my wife and a friend of us for like a dinner in Hamburg. And I said, guys, I'm sorry, I'm not going to come. I need to sign that. So I came then 2 days later, and I came home and I had like this big win. Like I just made a fucking $1 million, It's just and I had that story that I made it not only for me but also for my wife and me and blah blah blah. And she was just upset and sad and pissed that I haven't been there the day before, And my friend went to like, buy the Christmas tree with her, and like I haven't been present, haven't been there. And I was like, fuck, And then something broke inside me at this day. Something inside myself kind of fell apart because of that. And it has been, a big win for me.
Sure.
So both is true, basically.
It's like back pay for the previous 9-10 years.
Yeah. So this was another one, and then the third one actually, so to be honest, I've for let's say in this time we had 5 Christmas parties maybe in the company, and for the first 4 or so I found excuses not to be there. There were good reasons, and at the same time, they were just big excuses, because...
You're not the most, front and center social person.
Yeah, it's fine. It depends on the topic. That's what I realized at some point. So I missed, let's say... Oh, no, actually, I was there on the first one. There was still, like, let's say, 30 people or so. So that was, for me, okay to handle. Yeah. I could have the speech in the kitchen, so fine, easy, not a problem. Get a beer and then, get on the table, have a speech, easy.
Yeah.
But then... with the company becoming bigger, there was like more and more expectations towards as a CEO that I would have to say, not have to say, la. So I fucking hated it, especially since I couldn't speak truth. That was a big, I thought I can't speak truth. Okay, different story.
That was the ultimate then, really putting on the mask.
And then end of 2019, I finally went to a Christmas party, which was probably very much at the peak of how many people we were employing. let's say 250, 300, something like that.
Yeah.
So biggest parties of all.
Yeah.
And I just came back from in a meditation event, Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
And at this Christmas party, I spoke about like consciousness, awareness. I spoke like about like how many different nations are working within our company and stuff. And it just came out naturally.
Yeah.
I was still a little bit nervous, but I had something inside myself that I felt like I'm going to deliver that. I even did like a 2-minute guided meditation with the group, or even like a bit longer. I don't remember exactly. And like I didn't care anymore. Like this stuff inside myself was so important, and my heart was so open that much.
Yeah.
I said I actually looked forward to sharing that message with that big audience, because actually, honestly, I love speaking to people. Like in a small circle, in bigger circles. I've just been to university where I delivered a speech just without any preparation. So I do enjoy that, but it needs to be my truth. It can't be a persona.
Yeah.
So that was a big moment for me actually, to be able to see, oh, if I have a truth that is truly important to me, and that's joyful to deliver it. So
something worth saying.
Huh?
Something worth saying.
Yeah. Yeah, this basically was, I'd say, big moment number 3.
Nice.
Yeah.
It sounds like then there was a crossing over of like at that moment, like the previous goal being in some ways like competed for, or maybe even replaced by this deeper goal of like this being authentic or true. Or that was a process that was taking or beginning to take, the first seeds are planted.
Exactly. Basically, this was a time where that process, let's say, was initiated, where I suddenly knew, there's more than just bad business life, so to say.
Tell me about the bad business life. Because even we were trying to get 3 positive messages out and you still managed to sneak a negative one in. So,
sorry?
We even just had there, I said 3 high moments and you managed to get a low moment in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, I think this is a really good time to maybe, if you want to really tell me about some of the things that got you through that second venture.
A lot, let's say, had to do with this idea of like having to be in a certain way to be liked and accepted by everyone, basically. So every time I would go to the office, I would, without knowing it back then, I would play a certain role. What you have to know is that, like, naturally, I would spend a lot of time in nature. I would really connect with nature. I love the water, the sea, also like animals, and I love calm environments.
A good meditation.
Good meditation. Living with a heart wide open and being received in that way also by people. So let's say an office, focused on getting stuff done and pushing forward is not necessarily the most natural environment for me. Yeah. But that's where I went in every day with the idea of having to be someone else to be liked by that environment, basically. That was a big stress. Second for me, actually, which already like stressed me out massively at the very beginning, was like, let's say before I started to work for that company, my English wasn't great. So then introducing myself to the team as a CEO that's now coming on board, speaking English in front of the group, was that I could feel like that stress already. I mean, that went on. Like, I got then much better over time. Yeah. But again, I wouldn't have had the courage to say, guys, like, I'm going to tell you who I am, and probably all of you are speaking much better English than myself, so please excuse my blah, blah, blah. That would have been easy, but I had the idea I have to be, if I come in and want to be the CEO, how can I not have that perfect English? Yeah. Impossible. So much, like lots of stress for myself, right? Yeah. So that then in combination with obviously long hours, high expectations, and we had investors from day one, like especially then after 1.5 years when we had sold the company to private equity. The way that usually works is you look at the business as it is today. Then for private equity, that over the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years, it needs to grow in various ways by, let's say, ideally 7 to 10x, let's say. So then you have the plan, you sign up for the plan. There's no way out. You can't say, no, I'm not signing up for that plan, because then they will ask you, okay, but don't you believe in it? And all that bullshit.
So you're locked in, basically.
So yeah, exactly. Locked in. You gave I gave all these promises to people. Okay, I'm going to deliver this, that, and the other. Then also something else that kind of started to become part of my life, so to say, was that my wife was suffering from a really life-threatening lung disease that kind of was there always, but then after end of 2016 started to become, let's say, more visible and more clearly becoming like a problem, so to say. And I could also start to feel the stress of that. I mean, she was managing very well, and at the same time I had like fear that I was suppressing about like losing her, and simply that was coming on top of it. So lots of things being present, and I felt at some point, I kind of lost myself in the thing, in like being someone for everyone, apart from myself, basically. So lots of stress that needed to go somewhere. And I had no practice, as I said before, no nothing.
Sure.
So
no balance.
No balance. Just work, and then be there. Spend some time with my wife, and then when that also kind of
changed
like from like an easiness to like worry and fear. I kind of started to develop. I'd say I was quite addicted to porn by then. But that wasn't quick, easy release. Always available, easy. That was the start. At some point, started to see escorts and paid sex, basically. So I was cheating on my wife with that. And for actually some years up until mid of 2019, I was also like drinking quite a lot. I just had a conversation a few days ago with my ex-partner, back then wife, and we both realized that on a weekend, when I was then home, so to say, like I needed to drink something to actually be in a good mood. To like, she said, like to like really like have a good time with you, you need to slowly get drunk. Otherwise, you were just like not in a good mood, like kind of, I would say aggressive, but like simply not nice to
moody kind of
moody. Yeah, that makes a good description. And I was just realizing like how true that like if I had to sit in my reality, I wouldn't feel joy or anything. I would start to immediately seek a way to avoid it.
Yeah.
Right. So then, throughout time, replaced like alcohol didn't work for me anymore for me, because started to work out and like had the idea of like changing my body shape. So alcohol wasn't helpful. Yeah. So then first replaced alcohol by excessively working out. I'd say still way more healthy and had tons of benefits from it. And then eventually then after some ups and downs and back and forth whatsoever, then the, let's say, drug I chose was cocaine. Also for like even not that long time, but at some point it was there, and kind of I used that to kind of push me out of my reality, and all of that combined with I said before, like escorts, porn. So these were, let's say, my three main releases for all the stresses that I felt.
Yeah.
And
it would be very easy. So like it's funny with those, like they're different, we'll say, forms of addiction.
Yeah. And
alcohol is one that ironically is quite celebrated by society, so you'd get away with that. We probably would have said you have a great time, you know. The other two are slightly more judged by society. So how would you try to describe what you were experiencing in your body at the time that kind of pushed you down the route of escaping through those?
A not wanting to be where I am. Everything was flat, numb. Like, yeah, I really like I lost connection to life, connection to myself. I felt depressed. Like at the very end of it,
Yeah.
I've also had many days where I felt quite depressed. I felt like there's nothing to be alive for. Like if that's the end of it, I had this thought many days. Like if that's the end of it, that's fine. Like there's nothing for me that's like worthwhile to get up next day.
Was that even after exiting and everything?
Yeah, there was the peak of it all was probably in then not so much of the behavior, funny enough, but about the feeling of like depression was 2022. That's why I felt most depressed. But probably also because I started to allow a little bit of feeling of depression before I simply didn't know what it is. Anyways, honestly, I didn't feel much because I had lost the ability to feel. And then I had all these like stuck emotions inside of me, plus, all the stresses and
then investors still on your back and
yeah. Back then, like the situation was that like we had sold the company, it was not going well. There were all these expectations, how things are supposed to be going, but they didn't go that way. And we just went through 2 mass layoffs, basically. We went through one and then had another one at the end of the year. So I had done 2 mass layoffs in that year. Which funny enough also count towards the better experiences of the journey, because in that situations I was able to tell truth again. Anyways, depression, numbness, flatness, not really feeling anymore.
and just
Lost any meaning also.
just to juxtapose that, because we talked a lot about the journey and achieving freedom. So this is all happening simultaneously. It's not just like A then B then C.
Exactly.
But at a certain point, as you said, you sold the company a second time and achieved this very large exit. So just a few words on that, just to kind of pinpoint that, because I really want to contrast like what you're experiencing versus this goal that you really spent your whole life trying to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, it was in summer 2020 when we had, like, let's say, the big exit where we sold most of the company to a German strategic player. And I didn't feel anything. Like the money hit the bank account and then didn't even touch or look at it or anything. I couldn't even like perceive the freedom that would come with it. Like that, what I've been looking for at the time, the moment it came, I wasn't even able to feel any gratefulness. Like by today, I can actually feel quite grateful for like my financial resources.
Yeah.
And back then, I was like, whatever, life's shit. I don't care.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything with it. I made some stupid investments in the first 6 months of having it, but that's pretty much it. It didn't really change anything. I kept working. I kept doing stuff that I didn't enjoy.
Yeah.
I kept. Actually, there was a period where I only did porn. Actually, nothing else. But kept doing things I didn't want to. Kept feeling unfree. Kept playing Persona. So, the money was there and nothing had changed. Still in the same prison, so to say.
Yeah.
And I had once again done the same thing, have given all the promises to all these people. And then also I still have it today, but I'm more conscious of it now. I have this idea sometimes, and then that I have to do it all myself. But I create a reality around it. So the way I have done the deal in summer, I would like, with my co-founder and everyone else, from all the jobs available, I would pick the hardest one, fucking hating it, and at the same time deriving a sense of self from it, that I am picking this one.
It's like the martyr.
Yeah.
Like you're the one who carries the cross, kind of.
Exactly. And I wanted that feeling, and at the same time, I hated what I was doing.
Yeah.
You know.
But you can't stop yourself from doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I constantly create a situation. I did that also throughout the time in my company, where, I would like feel like I am carrying the weight, and I would make sure everyone else is okay. And in fact, it also, in a certain way, it was also reality, because everyone could like, and for sure, like they had also had like experiences that maybe weren't nice, and they felt some weight. And at the same time, I took more weight than I could carry.
Yeah.
And I wanted that, as absurd as that might sound.
Yep.
So I
can take it.
Yeah, exactly.
I get it.
And then pay me for it, you know.
Yeah.
So I get a little more money whatsoever.
Yeah.
But and also like there's a part of me that wanted to be the guy, you know, that made the deal and this, that, and the other.
Sure.
So I just put myself once again into this situation, and that's why and then also only a few months later, like I could see how health situation of Leni, or my wife, became significantly worse. So first couple of years after the accident simply weren't great, and like I didn't feel that freedom at all. It's just more traps. You know, my bank account had changed, and the traps are still the same, and the feeling is still the same. Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
And
if anything, there's the grieving or letting go, or maybe not even grief at the time, but like, you know, there was all this pushing to get to some outcome, and then you achieve the outcome, but then there's no rainbow and unicorns.
Exactly.
So there's even probably more like dissatisfaction and like, fuck this kind of thing. What did I do all this for?
Yeah.
You mentioned that, you know, in 2019 you'd been to a Joe Dispenza event. So, and how that, you know, might have planted the seed. So talk to me about that and how the interplay went between that first experience at that Joe Dispenza retreat and then into 2020, 2021.
I went to that meditation retreat. The reason was that there was no, my wife was seeking healing like outside of Western medicine, because they had no new answers anymore for her DC. So we went there to seek healing through meditation, and day 3 or so, like first I thought it's like all bullshit, all these esoteric spiritual people, like I have no idea what I'm doing here, like complete waste of time. Yeah. But also I didn't want to ruin the experience for her, so I kind of said, okay, why not try? Yeah. Nothing to lose. And then day 3 or so, like I really was my maybe second or third meditation of my life. Just followed the instructions. Like he basically said, like, I don't remember exactly, but like, you know, just sit there, be still, don't think.
Imagine yourself in space.
And basically be nobody.
Yeah.
And I did that without knowing what I was doing. Like I can't tell you how to do that. I have no idea. Sometimes still trying to get there again. Anyways, it happened. And I felt like, you know, since then I know that God exists, you know, before it was a concept. And since then I know he exists. Not in the way that the Bible or any other religion is describing it, but there is something. And I felt like in connection to like a level of love and universal love. I didn't know that this is available. Yeah. I had just like opened my heart, like big time in that moment, and then closed down a little bit, but I knew it can be opened. Yeah. And there is something. So since then,
a peek beyond the veil, you might say.
Yes. Yeah. And since then, like, you know, the seed was planted that there's more to life than I had thought. And then, through 2020, like I was, based on that experience, I was ready to just like drop everything and like, you know, live off what we had earned by then. Yeah. And basically just build a life and have a good time with my wife. And just go deeper into the spiritual journey. Yeah. And there was the other part that was still attached to the goal, to commitments, especially commitments, promises, Also like to like being perceived as someone that is that successful, and also some greed and stuff. So that was the dance, and eventually the old part kind of won. So we did the deal, yeah. But I have to say that this one event helped me to, in a certain way, I couldn't, at least for almost 1.5 years, like all 2020 up until mid 2021. To drop me all this like meeting escorts and stuff, like completely.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't stand to be like having that untruthful behavior. Because my heart was simply way more open, and I didn't connect to it anymore. So since then, I've been exploring all different type of like meditation techniques, plant medicine. Most of the time kind of trying to once again create such an experience, which is like a common trap of like a spiritual path, but
peak experience seeking.
I guess everyone needs to go through that.
It's part of the journey.
Exactly. And I think I like would have gotten, let's say, out of all this, let's say, difficult behavior, but then mid of 2021, like the business had real difficulties from like printing money to needing financing just after being acquired a year ago, and really painful situation. Plus the health situation of my wife like massively deteriorating. And that was simply too much. And then I snapped back and like, started the old shit again.
We go back to what we know.
Exactly.
The way I think I described that to you before, because so when we first met, you reached out and we did a couple of calls over Zoom. And I remember one of the first calls, you explained some of the situations like with, escorts and drugs and, and just kind of feeling like quite not the best about that. And I don't think you'd shared that with anyone before, or maybe there was a few people who'd known, but not really shared it so openly with people.
No, I haven't. No, I had only shared it with you.
Yeah. And I remember at the time kind of giving an analogy, which is that, if you see a guy go across the street and punch a woman and take her handbag, you would say he's a bad man, that's not good, but if you knew on the other side of the street there was a thief with a shotgun held to that man's children saying, punch her and take her bag or I'll kill your children, you'd say, fair enough. So the way I described it was like, even though we can judge the behavior, what's on the surface, which would be escorts or drugs or alcohol, whatever it is, what's the loaded gun under the surface? That's actually forcing someone to do that behavior, because I would imagine the alternative, if you had no release or escape, the escape that a lot of people turn to, and that's something that's quite prevalent nowadays, is suicide, And that is, of course, a very extreme example, but I believe that if someone doesn't have an outlet for that pressure cooker, it's got to go somewhere. I hope that kind of was able to relieve some of the, shame or guilt around that at the time.
Yeah. No, I mean, you did. I mean, no, you were the first one I really spoke to about it. And it's true what you said, that pressure needed to go somewhere. That's why, the earlier version of me should have had practice, breath work.
Escapism, basically.
Yeah.
But just a healthier form.
A healthier form, and in a certain way, it when we speak about breath work as kind of a way to, let's say, take the pressure off, it does that. Immediately after, I feel better. Sometimes when I have still an urge to do something I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And I go into a little journey myself, 15, 20 minutes, and the pressure is gone, and then I can see, the urge, okay, you're still there, but you have no power over me again.
Yeah.
It does that, but then in the longer journeys, it also shows me the root cause. Where does it actually come from? And maybe I don't even right now have the capacity to make the changes. I can have more compassion with myself afterwards. Yeah. So if I had a pathwork practice in 2000, let's say from 15 on, or somewhere along the journey, who knows? I mean, maybe I wouldn't have then built the business. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
butterfly effect. Be careful.
Totally. But since you asked at the very beginning, for my younger self, a strong practice around that, could have saved myself and many other people, especially my wife, quite some pain and quite some hurt.
And that's something we can drop into shortly in terms of your strategy moving forward with investing and stuff. But tell me about how you found breathwork, how you first came across it, and then, you know, subsequently what you got from that practice.
Yeah, and as I said like a couple of times before, like once again through my wife, I owe her my complete spiritual journey. It's completely insane, but yeah. So it was end of 2021. She said, "Hey, I've seen that breathwork stuff. I need to go to Bali to, you know," because she was also like desperately trying to understand what to do about the illness, because pretty bad at that time. So we went to Bali, which was completely insane that we did that. Like, you know, carrying oxygen on the plane, and you know, but we managed, like, you know, because she needed oxygen supply on a plane.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have been too much for her, like,
Pressure,
system to take it. And then, yeah, great idea to be in Bali for like 3 months with like 40 degrees and 90% humidity. So, anyways,
pollution everywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. And no access to healthcare or whatsoever.
Yeah.
But anyways, you know, we made it. Got to Bali, and I did my first couple of sessions there. The first sessions I already learned was, okay, there's something in it for me. I just simply don't know exactly what it is. And I knew that I had quite some shit going on at that time. So I knew that, okay, it's not the right time to like let go of that. But I knew that something.
You were still holding probably space for her a lot, I'd say.
Yeah, totally. Like, as much as I wanted to be truthful, and as much as I would also say it's an excuse that I didn't tell her earlier, her situation, it was also there that her capacity to take that, like being disappointed by the person that, and not only disappointed, like lied to and left basically by the person that she loves.
And that you created heavy. Probably quite an image around as well.
Totally. So, you know, I felt like, no, right? And there's probably also truth to it, and at the same time, it's an excuse anyways.
Sure.
So that was my first breathwork experience, but it put me in a very calm state. And actually, after my first or second session, I also had like, I was sitting at a cafe later on, and I had this moment where I felt like so connected to life. I was like, fuck, this is a whole new level of like connection and aliveness. So I knew I wanted to continue that. Then, you know, got back to Berlin, and
back in the routines.
Yeah, a bit back to the routines, like tons of stuff going on, like moving between Hamburg and Berlin, and my wife finally, you know, finding a treatment for her DC, which was great, and seeing that improving. But even that was funny. Like I was so much into my own stories and like trapped in my feelings that she got much better, and I was unable to celebrate that. I'm still feeling deeply sorry that I wasn't able to celebrate her health improving. Yeah. Because I was at the end. Yeah. And she was like, "Hey, I'm doing better. What the fuck? Like you're still the same. You're not even celebrating anything." Yeah. I was today, like back then, I was even like a little bit angry about it. It was like I was thinking, okay, but what about me? And today I'm feeling deeply sorry because I'm like, I mean, she escaped death in a certain way. Yeah. It wasn't that far away from it. Yeah. And I want just to like explain like in what deep kind of, you know, disconnected state I was from all the stresses and everything before. Well,
from even your own needs.
Exactly.
You know, how can you celebrate someone else's needs if you can't even recognize your own? And the anger is a good sign of that, I think.
Yeah, totally. So anyways, came back here, and then, summer, as I said before, summer 2020 was really like 2022 was really like the peak of the down, so to say. And then my wife, she had spoken with her coach, and that she had kind of felt that I needed help. I had expressed before a couple of times that I felt really depressed and not knowing where to go. Yeah. And then her coach recommended you basically, another guy and you, but I felt like I checked out your podcast and everything. I felt like, that's I feel a connection there. As you know, reached out, and then we had our first physical meeting, so to say, in EOS,
in Greece.
And then in Greece, started to do breath work, and then with you, like second, I don't remember, but session 2, I believe, maybe session 3, I don't remember exactly, but very early in our journey, so to say, I opened that box, you know, and also like the combination of breath work, but also then having shared all the stuff and then, being in your presence, basically, that allowed me to open.
Yeah.
And then stuff came out. You know, I have the not crying I had done for 30 years came out in this session, basically.
Yeah.
Back then I thought, oh, that's a lot of tears. And not knowing like a year later, like there's even more of that.
Yeah, that's like 15-20%, you know?
But for me at this time was like,
Totally, yeah.
you know, opening basically. And since then, breathwork I'm still practicing regularly and has been a, you know, super important, probably the most important tool and experience that enabled me to then bring about change. You know, after the session, I felt a connection to life again. I felt some sense of, that has been growing since then, but a sense of joy, even more connection, love also, confidence in myself, and a higher commitment to truth. So after that, like over a year's time, and I would have loved to just go out of that session and then clear it all up in one talk and like be upfront and honest and even like invite the conversation with my wife. But patterns are strong.
Yeah.
So I kind of fall in one situation after the other. But instead of like heavily lying to her, at some point I choose the truth. I need 3 goes.
Drip feed it.
Yeah. I needed 3 goes in total, which I'm not like say super proud of, but at the same time recognizing there were like super strong patterns, and the deeper I digged into myself through breathwork and our work, I could see like, okay, this is like deep ingrained stuff, and like having to choose between truth and authenticity and potentially losing love or attachment is something that is super difficult for me. So that I also have some compassion for like needing these 3 goals, and at the same time, So anyways, but there was a real integration of the experience and the true change then in the way I live, I'd say, the way I feel, the way I show up, the way I choose myself more often than before instead of something else.
We talk more about the individuals of that journey in episode 1 of this podcast with Renee also on that one. And we talk about the different trips and how all things came together. Why is it then that, you know, because you know, we'll do another podcast sometime in the future about more of the ins and outs of that journey. Because there's a lot in there and I think a lot of gold. But I think for now, what would you say are the main reasons why you, like as your first venture after Invincible Brands, selling the company and kind of having everything in from society standards that you'd ever need, why is it that you then chose for this to be your first kind of, for breathwork to be your first kind of investment or first venture after that? And why is that now like a prerequisite for working with you if you want your investment in someone's company?
I mean, the main reason, because it's like what we do have as a setup here in our company is different to my, let's say, typical investments, right? I had like 2 handful of investments already before, but these were like, here's the money, hands off kind of thing. Like a real, let's say, at least for the start, also operational involvement, and also being very close with the team, so to say. That's what I'm doing only like with Really Align. And a couple of reasons. Like one is obviously the method and the teachings have been life-changing for me. So it's something I want to like share, bring out. And I know there are other people, let's say, in need. And it's just a great answer for many of them. And the second thing is that, you know, since we are all sharing a certain way of how to be with each other, I feel like I can be open and upfront about my needs, what works for me, what doesn't work for me, and share it whenever it comes up, and not like holding it back 4 weeks, thinking about it, and then becoming angry at some point at someone that I actually like, and all this confusion. But just put it out. I mean, we had several rounds of that, like, 4 weeks after we started, another one 3 months later.
Yeah.
And it just feels great to me. Like, I've never had a venture where I had, let's say, so openly expressed stuff, and went also through, in that early stage, through that significant changes also. And that's just great. So I really enjoy the setup that we have. I love working with you guys. It's just between René, you, me. That's a way a company, if like, say, it's a real example of how to collaborate in a way that works. You know what I mean? So that's something else that keeps me doing that. Yeah. And I think it's very important. Like, we do have to live within our own company culture, that what we want to teach others, right? So it's also very important. And then the reason why I'm like putting, or why it's for me by now, it's like a requirement if you're seeking investment for me to like engage with breathwork and coaching, is simply, it's like, first of all, it prepares you for the storm. Every startup goes through storm, so it prepares you for the storm, gives you more resilience, gives you more clarity on why am I doing what I'm doing. It prevents burnout, clearly. I do not want to have if I can, like, let's say, do something that people like do not have to go through the same experience and like that I had, so then that's great. So I would like to kind of provide the tools necessary for that, the tool that I would have loved to have 15 years back. And then it also, the moment someone like starts to like, dive into the work and have the experiences, and the moment there's a little bit of a detachment from the content of life, so to say. So it's feeling that, this is a company and this is like behavior I have and this, that, and the other, but it's not ultimately who I am. Feedbacks become much easier. Yeah. Like I can save the person and myself the time of the shit sandwich. Like, you are great for this and that reason, and here's a few things you should improve. I can just go straight to the stuff that is heavy to handle, but it's backed up. They can take it back to their coach and to the breathwork practice. It's going to be integrated. It's way more efficient. I have trust that, I can bring stuff out, and then they have the capacity to handle it. Yeah. I can stop worrying about that. It doesn't mean I'm going to be an asshole or mean. That's not what I'm talking about. But like being direct and straight and honest, and speaking my truth without hurting someone, right? So I have the trust that they have the practice that supports that. And eventually that's something we're going to have to see in the future, but I have big trust that people going through that program will create the better company culture that prevents burnouts, that's in an ideal world, even like at some point, and I can see it in one of my ventures already, where like employees close to the founder are also like starting to like pick up what we are doing and practicing from time to time, where the company is not only a place where I come and make my money for my living and enjoy some community of some people, as long as the colleagues are nice.
To achieve some external outcome. Exactly.
It's also a place for like where I can find back to myself, connect to myself, and develop as a human being. Yeah. So, that's why I'm here.
Yeah, it's great. And it's kind of a bit of a black swan thing, whereas like as soon as we have the first people who go through that process and then have success in whatever that means, and we have a workshop coming up next weekend called Redefine Success. What does that mean? And I think that's it. If we're optimizing for market return and this exit, which I think a lot of people in that early stage believe, when I have the money, then I'll be happy, then I'll have the answers. Even listening to you talk about it for an hour and a half now, or whatever, they might still say, yeah, but that's him. It'd be different for me if I had that money, So some people do need to go through that process, as we all do different things in our journey. But I feel like, if someone gets it early on, that there's more to life, and having that balance, and having the practice from an early stage, they may not build a $400 million company, but they might build a $50 million company that actually fulfills them every day, and a team of people that are also fulfilled, and actually is really bringing something good to the market and good to the world. And that's the idea, I think, of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So if someone is, starting a company or early stage company, or maybe they're going for a while, and they've been inspired by your story, I don't know if you're open for investment pitches at this time, but what would be the qualities of someone that you're looking for if you were to choose to invest in someone's company?
It's funny, like this question, like the answer to that question is constantly changing in a certain way. At the moment, I would say, so there are two things that I'm kind of looking at. There's a part of me that is deeply interested in the human being behind that business mask, so to say.
Yeah.
So an openness for exploring that and opening up to practice, but also like enjoying like deeper conversations.
Yeah.
Like in a typical pitch, I would love, let's say a pitch is 1 hour. Like I usually understand the business model after 10 minutes, so that gives us 50 minutes to speak about the other stuff. I have 3 or 4 questions to understand a little bit the marketing funnel, where you're at, and then I give a shit actually.
Yeah.
Because in the end, it's true that an investment, it's that stage where I'm investing, is into the person and not so much into the business, because that can change the next day. Yeah. In fact, one of my more successful ventures I invested, I didn't really understand the idea, but I liked the guys. 6 months later, they completely pivoted to something that makes sense and that's actually growing and doing well today.
Yeah.
I only invested because I felt something, and with them, I do have that level of connection. Like
you're buying into the people, not the idea.
Exactly. So that's the one part, like the openness, the connection, depth, the willingness to like open up and give up on this, at least to a certain extent, about the ego ideas and personas and perceptions, all of these little things.
Yeah.
And then the other part is there needs to be, I need to feel like certain level of trust that there's enough business skills already to be able to be competitive in the world, because I'm also investing to achieve a return as much as I'm investing to have a community and to enjoy deep conversations. Like I'm not donating the money, so I would love to see it coming back at 10x at some point. You know, so I need to have a certain trust that there's a level of business skills and understanding and like some edge, like in a way, like it can be different edges. Everyone is different. Everyone has their own superpower, but there needs to be one superpower in which I can trust that will deliver a return. And when I feel that, then I'm usually good. Yeah. I'd say that it is at the moment. I know on LinkedIn I've written a post where I've given a different answer to that question, but that's how it feels right now, and how I'm looking at things at the moment.
Nice. Well, this has been quite the dive down the rabbit hole. I feel like there's much more here, but this has been epic and plenty, so thank you for opening the box with me, and I'm excited to see what continues to unfold for both of us in this venture, with all the different investments and projects. And have you any final words before we close out?
Just really thank you for providing the space and the space and the time and for me to talk, and also realizing for myself like how I feel sharing that truth with that openness, and feels really, really well aligned with like what I want to be doing. Like the last 1.5 hours went by in 5 minutes for me. So the whole thing is just part of the journey, basically. The journey to deeper and more So yeah, really appreciate it, the time with you here.
And thank you to whoever is listening to this point. I'm sure you've been inspired and moved by this conversation. If someone would like to reach out and find out more about you or get in touch personally, how would they do that?
Best is to just send me a message on LinkedIn. That's the easiest.
Yeah, I'll put a link to your profile in the show notes. Amazing. Well, thank you for listening, and Bjoern, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
See you in part 2. You!